We are going to do a data integration of SharePoint directly into Excel. We are going to do charts. We are going to do some calculations in there. And at the end, we're also going to combine the best of Excel with what you have in Word as well as PowerPoint. What I'd like to show you first is on the dox42 side. So in case you haven't downloaded or worked with the add-in yet, if you go onto modules, there's of course the information about the Excel add-in here. And in there, you will also find a link to our download page, which you find up here. And if you go to the dox42 Office add-ins, you can download Excel, of course, and the Excel add-in, as well as the PowerPoint and Word add-in. And if you click on Contact and just check the free key here and fill in the rest of the information, you can already go ahead with the trial of dox42, 30 days free of charge. And this is, of course, the full version. So anything you do here is the same that you get when you license it for a perpetual license. Great, so let's start with the scenario today. What I'd like to start with first is we have some information that we already have here in SharePoint, and that list I want to include in an Excel sheet. I also want to do some calculations on it, and we will also do a quick, there's an achievement here, we will also do a progress bar on this. So make basically the best out of what you can get from Excel. Now let's have a look in the data structure. So the first thing we're going to start with is our employee list. All right, and in here, let's have a look in the dox42 add-in. You see, it looks a little different from those of you that are already used to Word. It looks a little different because it doesn't have the insert data field. I will tell you in a second why, or at least where you can insert the data fields. A very simple reason for this is, imagine if you had to drag and drop into the fields in here, where it still would be the blue fields. It might be that it's crossing to others. So we have a means where you can directly address A4, for example, and this will be the place where you insert the data. So let's jump into it. And first of all, let's connect to the data that we already have in SharePoint. Of course, what I'm doing today with the data from SharePoint, you can do with any of the data sources we provide. So if you want to integrate SAP into Excel, CE data, Dynamics CE data, finance and operations, AX, SQL, whatever there is to be inserted into Excel, feel free to do so. Today we're going to do it with SharePoint, and I'm going to include the employee list. The site link is something that we get from here. So those of you that are professionals already with dox42 will also know that there is also the option to integrate this from some configuration Excel. We're going to do the very simple way of connecting today. We're going to do it with username and password. There is also an option for Active Directory integration for SharePoint specific, or generally for Dynamics, for everything in the Microsoft ecosystem. For today, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to integrate the data from SharePoint with my username, and once I click on connect, I should be able to see the different lists and libraries in that very site, where one is our employee list. All right, it's connected. If we click on test here, you'll see we have the 4 technically list items. Functionally, it's the employees, and yeah, that's the data you get from SharePoint. And what we would like to do is we are going to write this in the Excel. You've seen first name, last name, achievement, and the email. So let's just go ahead with, we've integrated the employee list data. Also, of course, we need to save our data map. Let's just call it, it's going to be in the same folder as the Excel sheet. We will call it employee map. Save it. And as a next step, in our Excel data source, we will integrate the Excel we've already integrated. So that's the part where we come to the difference of what you are used to in Word or what you're used to in PowerPoint. That in here, you need to integrate the output Excel. So let's just pick the same file that we've already opened. Let's go to our session, and we will use the employee list. Of course, in here as well, you can also work with the doc path. like you're used to with the other integrations. So it's going to be dynamic, and it's always going to take the right doc path. Also based on the doc path, in this case the data map, we'll pick the right Excel. And also in here, that's the most important part about the Excel add-in. You define it as the output file. As you check, use initialized Excel as output file here. So that means that when generating, this will be our output. If I wouldn't do anything, I would click on generate, we basically get the same file that we already have. What we still need to do is we need to add data to it. So there is the upper part of this, which is add initializing rules. And in here you can define data fields that will be written into a target range in Excel. So first of all, let's just start with something very simple, the first name. And this is of course type text, and you can integrate it there. You've seen there's different types. Also there's HTML, so it also gets more complex in terms of the data that you can integrate. In our scenario, the target range will be adjusted based to wherever I click. And if I click on this, we will have A2 as the starting point. Then let's do the same thing for the last name. And here. Then again, text. Just see if there are any questions. No, not yet. Last name, add initializing rule. We are going to integrate also the achievement, so that's a numeric value. That can be numeric, stays numeric here, and we will integrate this in A3. And then the last one is our email, which of course text will be also integrated into our list. Right, so that's that. That's the part where we integrate the data, where we define where it should be written into. And if we click on OK, we want to give it a nice name as well, of course, as always, progress bar employee list. That's the second scenario. We're going to focus on the progress bar. Then let's just save our changes. Oh, both name employee list, that of course makes sense. Employee Excel. So now that should be fine. And if we click on generate, it will take the data that we've already seen in SharePoint, and it's going to write it into. You will notice it's just the first one. So the simple reason for this is we need to tell dox42 that it should also extend our range. There's a simple checkbox for this. So go back to the data map, our employee Excel, and if we just click on extend range here, it will take all data it has. So like the 4 items we had in that list, from whatever data source, which can be thousands if you want to, and it's going to insert them into our Excel. Let's just go back and save those changes, generate again, and we'll see we have the 4 people that we already have in our list automatically inserted into here. Now the next thing that I would like to show you is, of course, any sorting that we do in the data source that will be used will of course also be applicable in the Excel. So for example, if we take, let's say, the achievement in here, which is numeric, and this will be descending, this will be integrated. Also, if you have any filters like higher than something, you can do that in the query here. And if we click on OK, it should have the achievement sorted descending. Okay, that works. So we have the achievement descending. Of course, if we want to do any formatting, we can do so. Let's just take the first couple of lines and define this as percentage. And if we regenerate the document, this is always also already going to be in the percentage. Now that's the very basic part of Excel. So where you just take data and write it into the sheet, and then that's the output. In most of the cases that we integrate with Excel, there's also going to be some calculations. And those calculations, of course, cannot only be like simple mathematical equations, but they can also be formulas. So all of the Excel formulas you can also use here. A very simple one I'm just going to do is I'm going to take the average achievement, and that's something I want to include on this part. Let's just make it yellow, and in here, this is going to be second formula, the average, and it's going to be the average of all the achievements here. So of course, this is a very simple example, but it's just supposed to show you all the different options you have. And even if there's calculations that are very complex, like with calculations that depend on calculations, and you basically are going to input the very basic data so that all the calculations that follow through will work. This is the way to go. You see this is currently causing an error. Simple reason is because there is no data yet. If I just write any in this, that will work. And could, because it's going to override it anyway, just to have some dummy data in here. But in this case, let's keep it clean, not include anything. And if we click on save again and generate our document, we should be able to see an average achievement. So we have a high performing team in this case because they are really good. And yeah, so anything I changed in there should be there as well. We could even try just for a second, if it's that quick, that if we just do a simple quick edit in SharePoint here, as it's always going to take the live data, of course. So if we make one of them 0.5, and if we generate that document again, there you go. We already have the new data and it's inserted into our Excel. All right, so much for the basic. Let's have a look on another scenario. In this case, we've integrated all people into here, and we've done some calculations. Another level that we would like to have a look on is the chartings. And if I just quickly open our progress bar here, you see this is an Excel where based on any value, this will change our progress bar. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to integrate with the same SharePoint list, but I'm going to take a different output Excel. So I will create a new data map which connects to the same SharePoint data source still. Let's have this here. Mine is fine. And then let's connect here, and we want to look on our employee list again. Let's rename it still. So you see, it's always handy to have everything nice and tidy in the documents, because then even in case somebody else will work with that template, you have the benefit of keeping it, or being able to tell what the former user has already done. Now, in this scenario, we will integrate the progress bar Excel. So again, we will do the same thing like we've done before. This is the progress bar, and we will pick our Excel file as the progress bar. We will also make it dynamic with the doc path. Then we will also use it as an Excel output file, and we'll, in this case, just add one initializing rule. So we could, of course, do the same thing again with, in this case, not as a column, but we have the first name, we have the last name, like an A2, A3, and so forth. That's something I imagine you can already do based on the first scenario we did. In this case, we want to take the achievement only, and we will write it into the current value. So F9, that's fine. And if we click on OK, we will be able to, well, first of all, I need to progress bar map, save the data map file. And now if I click on generate, it will, in this case, take the first one to be integrated, and it's going to change the data. The problem that we still have, or that we still need to adjust this, we want to have a selection of which employee. In this case, we're going to integrate in the data. And to do that, we are going to do a very simple selection where the user can define an employee ID in order to pick the right employee. Of course, this can get more convenient with drop downs where you see the name, but it's still taking the ID, which is going to be more detail on this. We've covered this in other classes, so today we're just going to focus on the selection for a quick part, but we will want to see dynamically that it changes the progress bar here directly. All right, let's just go to our, sorry, wrong button. Let's okay. That's what happens when you want to be very quick. All right, so there is the employee list, and in here we'd like to do a selection to interact with the user. In dox42 you can work with input parameters. So we will take the employee ID, please insert ID, and as a default value we will take 2. And let's also move this all the way up so it's nice and tidy. Save changes. If we generate, you'll see we've just created this very pop-up, but we didn't link it to the data yet. So the thing we still need to do is in our SharePoint data source, in our query, what we are going to do is in the data field, we want to have the ID, which is numeric, to be filtered equal to our input parameter. So whatever the user provides is going to be the filter criteria in our SharePoint data source. Click on OK. So click on OK here, and if we save it and generate, you'll see there is, of course, again, our input parameter. Let's just have a look on which employee we are going to take. In this case, 2 should be 50%, and 1 should be 88%. Let's do this. So 2, 50%, that's fine. And then let's take, did we take 1? Sure, yeah, 1 is 88, and that's employee 1. Right, so much for a dynamic integration of charts. The next level of this is to, of course, also bring something like this into other templates like Word and Excel. And you can use the very data source we've just created with the data map. So let's save this and go back to the data structure we already have. Very simple thing. Let's just create a new Word document, which is going to be the employee report. And in that employee report, we want to take the same data map again. So let's click on data map up here. Let's go to the file and open. That's where we can add, or we can open already existing data map. And as a data map can be linked to many different documents, in this case, that will be the same for our progress bar map. And then we want to link it relative to the document. So the employee report is going to look for the data map file relative. In this case, it's in the same directory, so it will always look for it in the same directory. Perfect. Then if we click on insert data field, we can already insert our first name and last name. If we do the first name, that's something we take from here. As always, you can drag and drop or also double click. And we'd like to insert the image of the progress bar. Now you see there's no option to select anything yet. Let's just quickly click on generate here so we see that it's already taking. Number 2 is Dr. Cloudy. There we are missing a space, so let's include the space here. And number 2, Dr. Cloud, is that correct? Dr. Cloud, that's correct, perfect. And we are still missing the data from the Excel. So we need to tell the Excel data source that we want to have the charts that it's generating. And the way we can do this is we'll click on data map and then on our progress bar Excel data source. You see the upper part was for writing data into Excel. What we want to do in this case is we want to read something, and that's what the lower part allows you to do. So we could read the data, so like columns and lines in there. We could read the charts, which is what we are going to do in a second. And there's of course print to image. So if the image, the print area is defined, it will take that and create it into an image and include it into an document. In our scenario, let's take the charts, and we want to have them worksheet chart. There's no variable that we define in this case. How come? Simple answer is, if we just close this, let's go open the progress bar again. If we open this again, we'll see that the name of the chart in Excel itself is already called progress bar. So that's the variable dox42 will also work with. And if we go back, so we've defined the data that is written into, we've defined that we want to read the charts from our worksheet, sheet 1. And let's just confirm, close and save. And you see now all of a sudden we also have data in here, and in this progress bar there is going to be an image, and we would like to do 100 pixels times whatever the ratio is. If we'd include 100 there, it would do it. It will probably look very high, so the height will be very big. So it doesn't really look that nice. But if we just take one of these parameters, let's take 300, and not do the second, but let's take the third one, which is a rotation. Let's do OK in here. Click on generate. This will do a 90-degree rotation, and it's a little bigger now. And lastly, to actually have it the way we wanted it to be, let's just take 300 for the moment, and then it's going to do it according to the ratio with 300 pixels. That's the way it's supposed to look. But still, the other option is something, for some scenarios, it could be handy to like have a progress bar on the side if it visually makes sense. So there's the rotation, which you can do also, of course, with all the other images in dox42. So much for that. We've integrated now a dynamic user in here, and we of course can do any other. So let's just take one again. There should be another percentage. That's going to be 50 in this case, 88 again. That's that. And the last thing that I'd like to show you is a scenario that we already have within our tutorials, where you can then see how you use it in Excel, how you use it in Word, and how you use it in PowerPoint. Now, if I go back to Excel, you can do the same thing, of course, in Word. So if you click on tutorials in here, you will see Word has a lot more tutorials already than Excel has. So we can highly recommend you to look on these, because each of them has the speciality. Like some of them are with XML data, some of them are with group calculators, some of them are like the sales report with chartings and Excel. Now, if I do the same thing in Excel, you will see that there are only 2 examples. Reason is because those 2 make sense with Excel. We will download the sales report and just download it on our desktop. All right, and what you see in here is that there is sales data for an employee. There is also some shares where there's a calculations. There is the monthly values again with calculations. And if we have a look on those charts, those 2 charts are dependent on the data we're already integrating here. So we basically combine what we had in our employee scenario, where we just extend the ranges all the way down for how many reasons there are. And then based on the calculations, the charts will be done from for example, the share in total. So basically we do a calculation that is then the base for an Excel, for a chart. So you can combine like subsequently using multiple scenarios within Excel that will output in either Excel like this, like we've already used it, or the way I want to show you in the very last scenarios. We have a look into that sales report and the PowerPoint. You will see that there are, well, there's value that are integrated. Lisa made a great integration into the PowerPoint add-in. So if you want to check out the PowerPoint add-in in more detail, have a look on her recording. And there's also going to be a repetition for the data in there. Now, if I click on generate, it will ask me to select the correct provider for access. This is just because it's a template that is delivered to anybody who wants to try it. So if you have Word or generally Office 2013 and earlier, take this one. If you have 16 and newer, take this one. That's for me. And then of course we can also select a year. And then what we get is a nice looking PowerPoint presentation that has, well, data. That's something like we said is, you can see in the PowerPoint session, dox42 class. But the most important part is, in this case, we've integrated charts again and again and again, which are just taking the data, then dynamically writing it into the Excel, reading that into our PowerPoint, but it's not just going to do it one time, but it's going to do it multiple times for each employee. So basically, all the configurations we've done today, you can do very, very dynamically, so that for as many data items as you have, you can have the charts integrated and have a very nice visual reports with your current status. All right, so much for the sales report. And of course, you see there's also a PowerPoint or a Word document. So you also see the same integration with, again, the charts. Also in this case, you see there's charts individual as type image, and in here you can even generate those with the same logic, just a little different because we can also select an employee in this case and a year. And then the output will be very similar, but just in a Word document. All right, so if you want to get into more detail about this, I can really recommend having a look on our sales report. If there's a scenario you have in mind, don't hesitate to ask us. So like the contact form we've already seen in the beginning is not just for free keys. If you have a scenario, let us know. There is a message in here and we'll address you directly then, with demo meetings, with trials, with whatever makes most sense as a next step for you. There will be more dox42 classes, of course. Next weekly will be the group calculator, and also further there will be more. So if you want to check out which of these we will have, just have a look on our events page. You see that there is today's class. There's a group calculator next week. For anybody who's in Switzerland, we will do a Swiss QR code session, text box integration, and of course, there's going to be many more events this year. So that's it from my side today. I'm very glad you joined the session. I hope that based on what you've seen, there's many scenarios you have in mind. Just let us know whatever questions you still have. You still have 1 more minute in this case to post them in the questions panel directly, and you go to webinar. So let me know if there's anything that's left. Right. Seems like we've answered all the questions, but you have our contact details. You know where to write us. It was really good having you here today. I'm hoping you're somewhere where it's not as rainy in Vienna as it is in Vienna today. Enjoy the rest of the day, and yeah, see you soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.